Welcome to the next stop on this virtual tour. This is Kirsten McDade, Resources speaking. So in this video, we will be talking with Cris Matthews, who works for the Department of Ecology. He is the site manager for the CK Fish cleanup site and is going to explain the cleanup process going forward. Hi, Cris. First, thank you for helping us make this virtual tour. It would be so much nicer to be meeting in person, but I am glad we could come together virtually in any case. So I was hoping you could start by telling us what the responsibilities are of a site manager for a toxic cleanup site.
Hello, Kirsten. And first, let me say thanks for the opportunity to talk about the role ecology plays in this cleanup work. So, very generally, the site manager oversees the regulatory cleanup process that's mandated by state law and regulation that's known as the Model Toxics Control Act, or we often use the acronym MOTCA. MOTCA requires a sequence of process steps to complete a final cleanup. These steps principally include, first, a remedial investigation that defines the nature and extent of contamination, and a feasibility study to evaluate possible cleanup options, and finally, the development of a cleanup action plan that implements the remedial option that's finally selected. The site manager also participates in the negotiation of agreements between ecology and a potentially liable party or persons. And after the active cleanup work is complete, helps to ensure that environmental compliance measures are followed and reviewed.
Great, thank you. This tour stop is located on the northern side of the CK Fish cleanup site. So looking to the right is Canada and to the left is Rainbow. So next, Cris, can you tell me when you and the Department of Ecology became involved with the CK Fish cleanup site?
Yes, the CK Fish site was first listed on Ecology's suspected and confirmed contaminated sites list back in 1996 due to a report of a leaking underground petroleum storage tank. Earlier this year, in March, the Port of Bellingham approached the toxics cleanup program that I work for to discuss using a MOTCA process to clean up contamination at CK Fish. This is part of a port general strategy to resolve environmental contamination issues for this site and other properties it controls in the Blaine industrial area where CK Fish is located. My program, TCP Toxics Cleanup, agreed with the request and assigned a site manager, me, and later in the spring began a formal MOTCA process to clean up the site.
Great, thank you. We learned in an earlier video that there is a visible oil sheen coming from the site. What is Ecology's role in managing this oil that is currently seeping into the harbor?
Ecology requires that environmental contamination should be reported when it occurs. Ecology uses a tracking system to record these incidents and respond as necessary. The visible oil sheen was previously reported to the site, and the port responded with containment booms around the affected area to contain the problem. The port's taken initial measures to determine the source of the sheen and is now working with Ecology on a comprehensive cleanup solution through the MOTCA process. The problem there appears to be the result of older petroleum contamination at CK Fish that this cleanup is intended to address and remove.
Well, I am glad to hear that the oil sheen will be addressed. From our talk and heard from the Port of Bellingham in the last video, we learned that there have already been some investigative tests at CK Fish. Could you talk a little bit more about what you think is going on at this cleanup site?
Yes, the port conducted limited investigations last year, 2019, to characterize site conditions and consider possible options to resolve contamination issues that they were seeing. That work found soil and groundwater that was contaminated with gasoline, diesel, and oil range hydrocarbons and associated volatile and semi-volatile organic compounds. The petroleum contaminants are apparently moving laterally within groundwater to affect the adjacent shoreline and the marine and intertidal areas. The report's findings also seem to confirm that contamination as a result of these old leaking underground storage tanks that were removed in the past and equipment leaks and releases during historic operations at the site.
That's super interesting. Thanks. So official toxic cleanup sites like CK in Washington State have what's called a public engagement component to them. Can you briefly describe what this looks like on paper and in reality?
Yes, MOTCA includes an important component of public involvement, public review, and comment on various steps in the cleanup process. Those steps may include, for example, the legal agreement to conduct cleanup, the remedial investigation and feasibility study I mentioned earlier, as well as a cleanup action plan to implement the cleanup work. The public is invited to participate in the review of these cleanup documents and steps, and Ecology encourages community feedback throughout the cleanup process.
Thanks. And we also hope that this virtual tour will help engage folks in this site. So moving forward, could you explain what the next steps will be in the process of cleaning up this toxic site?
So Ecology and the Port are negotiating and close to completing a legal agreement called an agreed order. That will govern and define steps required to carry out the MOTCA cleanup process. The first step will be a remedial investigation that will fully characterize the nature and extent of contamination at the site.
Well, I'll be looking forward to the results of the remedial investigation to learn if there are any other types of contaminants on the site or if the contamination is more extensive than known at this point of time. So right now, Cris, is there anything else that you would like to share with us?
Kirsten, I'd just like to say thanks again for the opportunity to talk about this cleanup. I want to thank Resources and appreciate the work you do to inform and educate the public about the environment and efforts to protect it. Thanks again.
Thanks. That's super nice, Cris. So next up on this tour, we will hear from Ian Foley with the Department of Ecology on how you can participate in the public process to make your voice heard during the public comment period for the CK Fish cleanup site. Thanks much.